Jerry Courtneyan, no more teachers' dirty looks. Jerry hated teachers. From 1st through 7th grade, they physically abused him. After that, they bored him. Let's find out more. Please welcome Jerry Courtneyan.
Listen, my first semester of my senior year in college went so smoothly. Almost everything I touched turned to gold kind of thing. I mean, I'll only give you 3 things. One is my boss, who I worked for 3 years, never gave me a raise. He told me, next month I'm going to give you a raise. My girlfriend wanted to move in together. And the third thing is I applied to the University of Michigan Law School. And my big plan was to sue any superintendent, principal, or teacher who had anything to do with child abuse. I was abused for most of my elementary school. Somehow, the second semester of my college experience, everything went wrong. I mean, this boss never gave me a raise. My girlfriend got a scholarship to NYU in anthropology, so she left. And the third thing is that I didn't get accepted to the University of Michigan. And you know, the thing is, just before I got rejected, I asked all my friends, do you think I'm going to be accepted to the University of Michigan? They all said yes. So let's, Ed talk, let's review. No job, no girlfriend, and no future. But my best friend John was always looking out for me. And he said, you know, there's a job opening at Northern High School in Detroit, and you grew up in that area. It's been offered for 2 months and nobody's taken it. Go ahead and apply for it. I go, John, there's just a little problem here. I never spent, I haven't graduated from college yet, 1. 2, that's not my major. 3, I took 2 ed courses as an elective, and I hated both of them. This is really stupid to apply to a job that I don't want to take to begin with. He said, you've got so many bills coming in, you have to find some job to take care of yourself, and go and get an application and apply. So I did. 2 days later, the principal called me and wanted me to come down. And I go, what? I must be really good to get the application. I hadn't even graduated from high school. College. So I went down to the principal's office. He looked like one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. I mean, every teacher that passed by was really old. He asked me 3 questions. I can't even remember the 3 questions he asked, but he told me the next day to talk to the faculty, and if they liked me, I was hired. So I went into the faculty room the next day, and all of them looked like me. And that means old and white. I can't remember the first couple of questions they asked, but one question froze me, and the question was, did I know Sally Rogers, or did they talk about Sally Rogers? And I said, no, who's Sally Rogers? And then they all looked at each other like, oh, okay. And they said, well, Sally was shot in the face by one of her students just before Thanksgiving, and that's the job you're going to be taking. And the science teacher stood up and walked in and put down a plant. And she said, take this plant and move somewhere where the air is sweet and students want to learn. Don't come here. You're too young. Take a look at us. You want to end up like us? So I go back home and I sit there and I look at the stack of bills and I think, do I really want to do this? I now have the job, I can make the money. And then involuntarily, I started to get all these images of the teachers I had in middle school, elementary, and high school. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing with you, but the first one that came to mind was Sister Mary Richards. She was my first grade teacher. And one day she looked at my notebook and she found it messy, that not all my papers were clipped into the notebook. So she grabbed me by the ear and walked me over to her desk. She said, stay, like I was a dog. Then she told all the other kids in the class, take out a sheet of paper, crumple it up, throw it on the floor, grind it into the floor, pick it up, put it on my desk. She was dumping a whole bunch of, not paper clips, but safety pins. She pinned them, and then I was covered with all these dirty wads of paper. Then she grabbed my ear again, ear walked me down to the kindergarten class. I walk in, these kids' eyes like got as big as communion hosts. And so I'm standing in front of them, and then she goes, this is Courtney. He's president of the Messy Club. And if you want to be the president of the Messy Club, just do like what he did. That image faded away. And luckily, my image train didn't stop until I was in 12th grade. This was at school that was looked upon by the people who lived in Novi, Michigan as a suburb. It was really a rural community that was cut off as too far away from Detroit. My 12th grade teacher, Miss, and I can't even remember her name, I blocked it out because she was the embodiment of somebody who, she would talk you out of becoming a teacher, that just 5 minutes with her. She couldn't speak you without yelling. Anyway, so Miss Larkin came in, this would probably be about April in 12th grade. And she passed out index cards. And she said, I want you to take this card home, discuss your name with your parents, and then bring back the proper name tomorrow, because that name is going to go on your diploma. And you want it to be the right name. So my best friend John was starting to fill it out. What did I just say? I said, take that card home, discuss your name with your parents, and bring it back tomorrow. And he said, well, what if we, and then she says, hands not raised, not fielding your questions. And so I said, oh my God. So anyway, so he starts, and then he starts to raise his hand like, she goes, no, it's too late. And so she, is this too much for you? Is this really, you can't comprehend this? It's very simple directions. And then Shelley Smith came in. She was our valedictorian. And the only thing I liked about Larkin was that she would yell at anybody, including the valedictorian. So Shelley comes in and she goes, where's your pass? Where's your pass? Where's your pass? Where's your pass? And she's like going through her purse to here you go, Miss Larkin. I'm sorry. And then I think her apology kind of threw her. She said, oh, okay, well, let's get on the ball. So then Shelley sits down. And she does what most people would do. She starts to fill out the card. I said, take that card home, discuss your name with your parents, and bring it back tomorrow. Your parents, Miss Smith, your parents. You owe them that modicum of respect. Everybody's like, what you're doing right now, you're completely quiet. And wondering, this woman is off her rocker. So she's looking at the class. And then the phone rings. And that was like too much for her. She says, oh, you gotta be crazy to do this job. You really do. It was an office phone. So she picks it up. What? She slammed it into the receiver, into the phone, and it broke into about 5 pieces. And she said, they can take that out of my pay. We're all going. Now, I have to tell you this. They call me to tell me that Paul Faulkner's going to be late. He's always late, and half the time he has a pass. Take out your anthologies. I'm not going to wait for this knucklehead. Take out your anthologies, turn to 299 Beowulf. And then, of course, here comes Paul Faulkner. My friend John and I are just laughing, not loud, But we're smiling because if John was the only one who had the guts to ask a question of Larkin, Paul Faulkner talked back to her, and he didn't care if she was in his face at all. So he comes walking into the classroom. He has his pass, and it's crumpled up, and he drops it on her desk, and he goes, "Pick that up! That's not, my desk is not your personal garbage can." And so he takes it and throws it away. So anyway, he's now standing there, and she says, "Oh, Faulkner, I forgot to tell you. Take this card home, discuss your name with your parents, and bring it back tomorrow." So he takes it, and he sits down. And then he starts to fill it out. She then walks over and puts her face in his face. She said, "I said take that card home, discuss your name with your parents, and bring it back tomorrow." And he goes, "Hey, how about if I make a wild guess right here?" So she said, "How about if I write you a pass to the principal's office?" And then Paul was sitting next to me, and Paul looks over at me and goes, "How'd you like to wake up one morning and be her?" What a waste. Teachers. What a waste. And I go, back at home. That kid was absolutely right. What am I doing? And going into a profession that took my dignity, took my self-esteem, took my hopes. But what am I going to do? I look at the bills again. One thing I have to do when I'm in this position is call my Uncle Bill. My Uncle Bill is really my father. He was my best friend. He was my mentor. But by the time I was 21, I didn't want to call him for every problem that I was running into. So I decided to call him because what he did when I had a problem, he would always talk about the pros and cons. He really wouldn't tell me what to do, but he'd work me through the thoughts of solving the problem. But 10% of the time, he was like this sarcastic New Yorker. I'm just hoping that this is not the 10%. So I called him up, and I said, "Bill, I got a teaching job. I could make enough money to bring me to spring. But you know how I feel about schools. You know, the abuse I got there. You know, I have no respect for teachers. But I need the money. I don't know what to do. I'm looking at a bunch of bills right now." And he said, "So, what you're telling me is that you may be the only person in the United States who's going into teaching for the money." The next thing I knew, I was in the Northern High School parking lot waiting for the Detroit Police Department to escort us into the school. We walk up the stairs, I walk up the stairs and go to Sally Rogers' old room. They open the door, I go in and hear it lock. It is so cold. I turn on the light, and I said, "I gotta turn on the thermostat." There are 3 wires sticking out of the wall. That's where the thermostat was. There's actually a bicycle where the radiator is. There's cages over the windows. I open up my briefcase that John gave me, and then he helped me make my syllabi. So I pull that out, and then I hear the door get unlocked, and the students come in. Every one of them, I think, was taller than I was. Not only that, every one of them either gave me a smirk or glared at me. And I start to pass out my syllabus. I rubbed this kid's chin, not on purpose, I just nicked him to pass out the syllabi to somebody else. And he hits my arm, and there goes all the syllabi all over. He goes, "Don't touch me!" And this kid way in the corner wearing sunglasses and a hat and a coat, oversized coat. And he has his feet up on a desk. He knows better than that to touch me. I need this job. And I went home, and it kept calm for once for me. I kept calm, and I said, there must be a way out of this. I gotta think. Now I spent many years in the hood, and one thing I knew is that if you don't have anybody at home, you have 6th graders out in the streets. There's nobody gonna make them go to school. These kids, somebody's at home making them go to school, or they wouldn't be there. So I went the next day to the secretary, and I got the home phone numbers of all these students, and I called them. And I said to the parents, I think I was talking to parents, maybe I was talking to brothers or sisters, or I don't know who I was talking to. They sounded like an adult I was talking to. I said, could you come to my class tomorrow and just stand there? Help me out, because I really want to teach your kid. They came. There were about 20 parents, or adults anyway, surrounding the classroom. And what do you think they were like the next day? They were like puppy dogs. They didn't make a peep. And these parents, or whoever they were pissed off too to be there in my classroom at 7:30 in the morning. After a while, I think it took about 3 weeks, but I dropped one person after another until it was just me and the kids. And I thought, man, I can do this. I don't mean teach. I mean, I didn't know how to teach, but I can do this to get to June and collect my paychecks. Well, anyway, this kid, who probably, and I've been in education for 35 years, this kid still remains one of the ones I remember most, and this was somebody who I just met 3 weeks into my 35-year career. And she had eyes that could go right through you. And she looked at me and she goes, are you any good? I said, what do you mean? She says, because if you're good, you won't be here till June. And if you're like those other white robots down there, you'll be here forever. And I walked away and think I have some food for thought. So anyway, I said to the students didn't even want to be in that school. They wanted out. And I thought, okay, let's do this. So we walked the neighborhood and talked about the neighborhood because I hadn't lived in the hood 6 years, and they were telling me, asking me questions about what was it like back there, like I was from the prehistoric. What was it like back then? The other one's talking about what's it like now. It was a pretty good conversation. And then I said, well, let's start going to the stuff that's around this area. We were near downtown, so it was close enough to go to the Detroit Art Institute, the main library, Motown, kind of historical museum. So we had all of that going. And so I still did not really know what I was going to be doing, but we seemed to be building a trust. Now, what was true, no matter who was the teacher, kids never came back after lunch. So I started to come up with an idea of having basketball games and I had them learn how to do percentages, like how many shots from the line and in the field and all those kinds of things in basketball that I helped them do the math. And what was happening is there was a trust being built. So then I came up with another idea. How about if I make home visits? Not to say, oh, your kid screwed up, but to say, I want to talk to your parents about what a great student you've been. By this time, I got to know Jatoria, that's the one who asked me the $1 million question. And I got to know her quite a bit and got a lot of deeper philosophic questions, really. She said, if you go out at night to visit these homes, Mr. Courtney, they're going to kill you. It's not like the neighborhood you left. This is really violent. I did it anyway. And here I am to tell you, I didn't get shot. Jatoria was near the last person I visited their home. And I went there and met her grandparents at the door, and the grandmother made this big dinner. It was so nice, and we laughed and we talked, and they told me about the great migration of African Americans coming out of the South, and they were two people who did that. And I'll never forget that Jatoria's grandmother said to me, looked at me and said, oh, JJ, that was her nickname, JJ has a shot on you. You do a good job over there. And I'm like, God, I don't even know what I'm doing. So we sat around, talked for a while. We're in their living room. And the grandmother started talking about why Jatoria's different, because I was asking, she's so different than all the other kids. Jatoria's grandparents used to pick her up from school, from 2nd grade on, and they'd do things at home. And after dinner, they would read in the living room. It would be completely silent. And then Jatoria asked him, yeah, and when I got to be about 7th grade, I learned that my grandparents couldn't read. What they did was they set an environment for learning. For people, 2 people who couldn't read. That really stuck with me. We had our shoe fly pie, finished that off, and now it's about time to go. And Jatoria kept on looking at me like this. And Jatoria's grandmother said, JJ, quit staring at Mr. Courtney like that, just make people uncomfortable. And she still kept on staring like this. And I said, Jatoria, you can ask me any question you want. Go ahead. She goes, are you black? And I go, yeah, black. And then she said, then why do you care?